Well, it's January, so you know what that means. It's already time to start thinking about Halloween. So, for me, that means how am I going to transform this backyard into something scary and fun for my neighborhood. Last year, when I built the haunt, everything was about the track. I was focused on getting it done, making sure it worked, building the cart. So now that that's done, I have the track dialed in. Now I look to a new year, like what can I do to improve? Last year, because I was focused on the track, most of the props I had were related to like cemetery things, tombstones, that kind of stuff. And I just utilized the props that I already had, the tombstones and that kind of stuff. So I don't want to do the cemetery theme again. So what's the theme for this year? And I spent a lot of time over the Christmas break thinking about this. And this year I think I'm going to do a swamp theme, kind of a Louisiana bayou, scary swamp witch, swamp monster type theme. So as we go into this new year, I'm going to take all of you on the journey with me as I build props and as I think through what the haunt might look like. I'll share with you what I'm thinking and some of the different ideas I have. When I'm working on my haunt, there's two key things that I always try to keep in mind. Number one, I'm a cheapskate. I like stuff cheap, easy. Second thing is I want to be able to store it. I can't have tons and tons of props. I don't have tons of room. I did build a shed that holds a lot of my stuff, but even with that, when you're thinking about larger props, I just don't have room for it. So how can I build things in a way that they're relatively budget friendly and I can easily store them? And I'll talk about how I do some of that. And something else that I'm thinking about is how can I re-provision existing props? So I have some animations, I have some static props. Can I just redress them to look swamp theme to make those work? Or does it have to be completely redone? So kind of thinking about that, how do I reuse existing props as well? So one of the things I did have a problem with this last year is with the cart, I could only take 2 people. And it took about 2 minutes for the cart to go around the track. So if you think about that, that's approximately 60 people an hour, and that's if we're really on our game and everything goes smoothly. That's not a lot of people to be able to move. So it was boring for my actors in some ways because they would have a scare, and then it was almost 2 minutes before the cart came around again, and then they would have another scare. So this year, I am building a second cart. This will make it so that instead of 60 an hour, I should be able to do over 100 an hour. And it means a little more excitement for my actors. They won't have to wait a full 2 minutes to do a scare again. They'll get to do a scare about every minute. They'll have a cart coming by and can do a scare that way. Something else I want to try this year is I want to try to do a better job making scenes kind of throughout the haunt. I use a lot of black plastic right now, and that's fine. It does a great job, and I will still use some black plastic. But I've been really thinking about how can I create kind of themes that are paintable without going back to the budget and storage issue. How can I still be able to store them and keep it relatively inexpensive? I could build some walls out of wood, but then that defeats the storage problem. I mean, the amount of walls that I would need to kind of enclose my haunt, it just wouldn't be budget friendly, and I just have no way of storing all those panels, so that doesn't really work. So one of the ideas I'm playing with, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, is to frame out maybe with 2x2s some walls. And then I got this from Harbor Freight, and you'll notice that it's 12 feet by 15 feet. So my goal is to cut it along the 15, or cut the 15 feet in half. So that'll give me 12 foot by 7.5 feet, 2 sections of that. So that would give me 24 feet of drop cloth. And then there's lots of ways I can use that. I can either hang it from my existing paracord, use the clips like I did before, or maybe frame in with like 2x2 and figure out a way to hang that and make the 2x2 so that at the end of the year, maybe I leave the top and bottom one, but the side ones or the supports I undo, lay them sideways, and then roll it all up into the canopy. The beauty of that, because this is a painter's drop cloth, is that it's repaintable each year. So if I wanted to do something different the next year, I could paint a different scene. If I wanted to make it look like a little wood shack, or if I wanted to make it look like forest or whatever. So don't know how that's going to work. Not sure if my painting skills are up to making it look like I want to, but that is something that I want to play around with and try out, and I'm going to take you along the journey when I do that, mistakes and everything. Another thing I'm thinking about with the swamp is, how do I make my riders feel like maybe they're in water for at least part of the haunt? I know that there is some really cool options using the laser line levels, which I do have one of those, and fog machines, and as the fog hits the laser line level, it gives it this very water effect. The amount of laser line levels and fog machines I would need to kind of cover my whole track doesn't really make that budget friendly, so I probably won't do that, but I may use that for maybe a couple parts of the haunt. The other thing I was thinking about is, could I just take like cardboard? I get tons of cardboard. We get Amazon deliveries all the time. Could I paint cardboard to look like water and then put like maybe a polyurethane or something on it to give it like a wet look? And if I laid that down all over under the track, would that look like water in the dark? Have no idea. That may be a horrible idea, but again, something I'm thinking about, and I'll try and I'll show you the results and we'll see if it's something that works or not. Obviously, if you have any great ideas, feel free to put them in the comments. Remember, it needs to be fairly budget friendly too, and I'm not sure if polyurethane on a bunch of cardboard is budget friendly, but something to think about. Another thing I like to do is I like to build bigger props. So like if you remember from last year, I did the big tombstone that had the little opening flap, so it was kind of a jump scare as well. It was made out of cardboard. At the end of the season, I just trashed it because I didn't need it and I don't want to try to store that. But it was cheap, it was budget friendly, and then I just got rid of it at the end of the year. So as I'm thinking about this year, what are the bigger props that I want to make? One thing I am going to play around with is building like fake trees. So that I can hang swamp moss and things off of it, so it really feels like you're kind of in a swamp, forest, lagoon type thing. And then the other thing I thought about, obviously I could do like a little shack, a facade, but that would probably be made out of wood that I could reuse, not sure about that. And then the other thing that would be cool is I have this old round fan, like industrial fan that my dad had in his shop, and I thought about putting that on the back of either a cardboard or a wooden frame to make it look like a fan boat, like the little boats that they have the fans on the back of them that they take through the swamps. Even if it didn't go anywhere, just to have it look like there was one parked there, and then I could use that as a prop, you know, for actors. They could come out of the swamp boat, they could hide behind it. I'm not exactly sure yet. So that's another cool prop. Thinking about swamp lanterns. Those are easy to make. I'll probably make a whole bunch of those and just have those all over. I know there's some cool ideas out there for like little fireflies that you can like hang from the trees and it looks like little fireflies. So again, some cool ideas, things that I want to play with throughout this year as I'm prepping for my haunt this year. Something we did use a little bit this last year was if you remember, the animatronic, we called him Fred, that was at the beginning of the haunt, that his mouth moved and we had a little script to go with him. We really want to take that to the next level this year. That doesn't mean the whole haunt would be full of animatronics, but thinking, my buddy that's been building those with me, thinking about how we can build life-size form animatronics that we can duplicate fairly easily, and that we can change the script with what they say and then dress them differently each year. So then that way, regardless of like what theme we have, kind of improving the whole animatronic thing. And not just those kind of props, there's some other ideas we have for some animatronic type stuff that we want to do, but it takes money, takes time, and so we'll see what comes up for this year. And then the last thing that I'm thinking about for this year before I wrap this video up is really figuring out what actors are going to have what role earlier on in the process, and then creating some very custom costumes for my actors that are in the haunt. Typically what we do is we kind of have everybody just dress in like long sleeve black. Some of them paint their faces, some of them put on a mask, and then that makes them kind of interchangeable. But this year, kind of taking it a step further and really building some cool creatures and things with costumes. There's some really cool videos on cosplay type costumes, taking foam and putting it together and then painting it to look like armor, or to make it look like a monster or whatever, and maybe even creating some masks. I love the work that Stiltby Studios does. I know I've said that before, but it would be fun to create some masks and things like that. I think that would just be cool, and it would add an element. The other thing is a lot of our scares this year were just jump scares where someone was yelling or whatever. I want to use some compressed air, use maybe some shakers, cans with pennies in them, and shake those. Clicking sounds, maybe something where you hit a button and audio plays that way. So tons of ideas for this year. Super excited to have you along for the journey. I'm going to try to videotape more of the work I'm doing in progress so that you can kind of get a sense of what I'm doing, what works, what doesn't. Hopefully it'll give you some ideas. So if you like my videos, like and subscribe, of course. I would love to have you with me along this journey, and I'm going to try to make videos a little more frequently, at least one a month, maybe a little more frequently than that if I can. So thank you for joining me, and let's have a rock and roll 2024 as we work towards October 31st.